Welcome to Freshman Biology with Jennifer Curley. We have a short kind of program for us today. We'll do introductions, we'll do course overview, a day in the life so you can see what remote learning looks like, and then finally some frequently asked questions. As far as about me, so here I am. I have been teaching here at Franklin High School for 7 years. I've been teaching overall for 11 years. I have my undergraduate degree in biology and was planning on going to graduate school. I wanted to do microbiology, but I wanted to do a little bit of traveling. So I got a job teaching English, first in South Korea and then later in the Czech Republic, and found that kind of in that time that I was really meant to be or thought I would be focusing on traveling, I actually loved the teaching aspect of it. So when I came back, I got my master's degree in education, and I've been doing it ever since. And kind of now that we know what leads me here, let's talk a little bit about the course. So we are a true biology survey course, meaning we're a mile wide and an inch deep. Each one of our units, which range to about 2 to 3 weeks long, tackles a huge subject in biology. So something you would spend literally an entire year if you were a biology major in college talking about. And we do it in just a few weeks. The reason behind this is to give everyone an idea and a strong foundation to build on later, but we are not building content level experts here. So that means students, and I say this to them all the time, are not just because they finished their genetics test now genetics experts. We just know kind of a strong foundation. And that's what kind of our goal is here. In terms of how we know we're building this strong foundation, the course itself is built off of the curriculum is built off of the 2016 Massachusetts state standards. 2016 standards were formalized, obviously, a couple of years ago, but they're still kind of crosswalking over in terms of MCAS for what's being assessed from 2006 versus 16. So our curriculum is aligned basically to where the state is in terms of these standard levels. Because we are an honors level course, what this means is that we have the opportunity to move a little bit more quickly and ask for a little bit higher level of independence of our students. And what that does is build in some opportunities for deep dives and expansions along for that basic curriculum that is outlined by the state. This means that if you take a unit like genetics, we will do absolutely all of the state standards. And then we might also talk a little bit about microevolution, Hardy-Weinberg disequilibrium, talk a little bit about its impacts on evolution. And that is all kind of bigger, broader stuff that allows us to make connections between different units. In terms of skill focusing, we do a lot of modeling, which does not necessarily mean kind of constructing a physical model. It means kind of more being able to read and interpret chemical equations for meaning, being able to look at a diagram, so to look at ecosystems, food webs, things like that, and draw meaning and conclusions from them. Analyzing this and drawing conclusions are kind of our next bullets. And those are huge parts of science in general as a discipline, and something we spend a good portion of the year and a lot of our class time focusing on. The last two bullets are ones that I consider to be especially important for freshmen, and the last one particularly in the remote environment. The language that I use in class around self-reflection and goal setting is meant to kind of instill those ideal qualities that we would want in our students. And that is whenever you are taking a formative or learning information, you're constantly kind of taking your own temperature in terms of comprehension. So I'll show you guys what formatives look like in our class. But it's constantly sort of asking the question, if I can answer A and I get it right every single time, then maybe that's something I don't need to focus on. But if I only get B right half the time, that's what I'm spending tonight reviewing, asking Ms. Curley questions on, and kind of making sure that we focus language in class around that. And the last one, self-advocacy. So in the remote setting, being able to advocate for yourself becomes even more important. And it's something that I kind of communicate to students whenever possible. In terms of what the course looks like, so you can kind of see this is one of the ways we do formatives in class is using a program called Pear Deck. So I get to write questions for students, and then they get to interact with those questions in real time. We can then sort of look at their responses. So here's one on common ancestry, looking at cladograms they did this week. And then I can see kind of how they're doing. So to me, most of them are getting it, but some of them are still picking traits. And so I can give them real-time feedback. Same thing, this one over here on scientific naming. So I noticed that some students are having issues with species versus genus similarities. And so this, again, gives me an opportunity to give them feedback. We then kind of wrap in that language of, do I understand how to determine common ancestry? If not, this is where I'm reviewing. And that sort of having that goal setting or self-reflection goal that comes in every single class period. What instruction looks like. So I don't do live instruction. And the reason being is that, let's say someone's internet cuts out for 5 minutes and they miss a chunk, or someone has to be out for a day. It's just not pragmatic. So what I do instead is I'll record YouTube videos, and this allows students to come back and rewatch any lecture or any information from any class throughout the year anytime they want to. And it also allows for my students that might have had a technical issue and missed a few minutes. They now no longer have that issue. They can just kind of pick right up where they left off. And my absent students, again, they're not missing out on that because they can watch this as well. Group work, we do a lot of group work in this class. So they spend a significant amount of time in their breakout rooms, which are smaller Google Meets. For example, a good portion of the end of last week was spent working with their taxa pennants, which they created. So they researched the levels of classification and also characteristics for those levels for different organisms. We then combined this information and research with our ability to read and interpret the levels of the taxa and our ability to read and interpret cladograms by taking 13 organisms that they researched and figuring out where they belong in this blank cladogram. And this is done on a program called Jamboard, which gives them the ability to write and annotate on any diagrams. Last but not least, assessments. So I do assessments. They would be in Google Forms, which is kind of what you're seeing right here. So it gives the students ability to sort of select their answers. They can have open responses. It's kind of what you would imagine for a typical assessment, just in online form. There is a timer that I use for this program. And for people that have students on IEPs and 504s, there is an ability to adjust timers. So please know that extra time is still accommodated with those timers on here. But that allows it basically to create sort of an incentive to be prepared for students, and also a disincentive if you are not prepared to try and be Googling and looking up answers, because if that is what you end up doing, you quickly run out of time on these remote assessments. In terms of frequently asked questions that I got from you guys, so the first one was about MCAS. As of right now, the state is moving forward with MCAS, but they are constantly in meetings about what that's going to look like, if they're actually going to have it, and they haven't communicated out with the teachers about kind of their final conclusions. I will let you know as soon as I hear. But as of right now, we are moving forward kind of regardless. So our curriculum is based on preparing and will prepare students to take that MCAS if we do end up taking them in the end of the year. And if they don't, then that's fine. Our focus and our goal is still creating a strong foundation off of those state standards. So it doesn't really impact our day-to-day, operations very much. But I will let you know kind of as soon as I do about whether or not that test is actually happening, or if they're postponing it, or what they're doing. We are doing labs. We really benefit from Intro Bio being heavily well-worn territory. This course has been taught on fully remote many, many times over, meaning there are actually some really great online lab simulations that we can use. So we are not we are able to do those labs even if we stay fully remote or when we're in the hybrid environment. And we talked a little bit about assessments later. We are having assessments, so you can kind of see those will be on the Google Forms. If I happen to not have kind of addressed your question, or if you have anything you want to ask me, please feel free to email me anytime. So my email is curlyj@franklinps.net. And thank you again so much for taking the time.